All right, today I'm going to keep reading Tuck, starting with chapter 22. Next morning, Winnie went out to the fence directly after breakfast. It was the hottest day yet, so heavy that the slightest exertion brought on a flood of perspiration and exhaustion in the joints. 2 days before, they would have insisted that she stay indoors, but now, this morning, they were careful with her, a little gingerly, as if she were an egg. She had said, "I'm going outside now," and they had said, "All right, but come in if it gets too hot, won't you, dear?" And she had answered, yes. The earth, where it was worn bald under the gate, was cracked and hard as a rock, a lifeless tan color, and the road was an aisle of brilliant velvet dust. Winnie leaned against the fence, her hands gripping the warm metal of the bars, and thought about May behind another set of bars in the jailhouse. And then, lifting her head, she saw the toad. It was squatting where she had seen it first, across the road. "Hello," she said, very glad to see it. The toad did not so much as flick a muscle or blink an eye. It looked dried out today, parched. "It's thirsty," said Winnie to herself. No wonder on a day like this. She left the fence and went back into the cottage. "Granny, can I have some water in a dish? There's a toad out front that looks as if he's just about to die of thirst." "A toad?" said her grandmother, wrinkling her nose in disgust. "Nasty things, toads." "Not this one," said Winnie. "This one is always out there, and I like him. Can I give him a drink of water?" "Toads don't drink water, Winifred. It wouldn't do them any good." "They don't drink water at all?" "No, they take it in through their skins like a sponge when it rains." "But it hasn't rained forever," said Winnie, alarmed. "I could sprinkle some water on him, couldn't I? That would help, wouldn't it?" "Well, I suppose so," said her grandmother. "Where is he, in the yard?" "No," said Winnie, "he's across the road." "I'll come with you then. I don't want you leaving the yard alone." But when they came out to the fence, Winnie balancing a small bowl of water with enormous care, the toad was gone. "Well, he must be all right," said her grandmother, "if he could hop off." With mingled disappointment and relief, Winnie tipped the water onto the cracked earth at the gate. It was sucked in immediately, and the wet brown stain it left behind paled and vanished almost as quickly. "I never saw such heat in all my life," said Winnie's grandmother, dabbing uselessly at her neck with a handkerchief. "Don't stay out here much longer." "I won't," said Winnie, and was left alone once more. She sat down on the grass and sighed. May, what could she do to set May free? She closed her eyes against the glaring light and watched, a little dizzily, as brilliant patterns of red and orange danced inside her eyelids. And then, miraculously, Jessie was there, crouching just on the other side of the fence. "Winnie," he hissed, "you sleepin'?" "Oh, Jessie!" Her eyes flew open and she reached through the fence to grasp his hand. "I'm so glad to see you. What can we do? We have to get her out." "Miles has got a plan, but I don't see how it can work," said Jessie, speaking quickly, his voice almost a whisper. "He knows a lot about carpentering. He says he can take Ma's window frame right straight out of the wall, bars and all, and she can climb through. We're going to try it tonight when it gets dark. Only trouble is that constable keeps watching every minute. He's so darn proud of having a prisoner in that new jail of his. We've been down to see her. She's all right, but even if she can climb through the window, he'll come after her as soon as he sees she's gone. Seems to me he'll notice right get away, but we gotta try. There ain't no other way. Anyhow, I come to say goodbye. We won't be able to come back here for a long, long time, Winnie, if we get away. I mean, they'll be looking for Ma. Winnie, listen, I won't see you again, not for ages. Look now, here's a bottle of water from the spring. You keep it, and then no matter where you are, when you're 17, Winnie, you can drink it, and then come find us. We'll leave directions somehow. Winnie, please say you will." He pressed the little bottle into her hands, and Winnie took it, closing her fingers over it. "Jessie, wait," she whispered breathlessly, for all at once she had the answer. "I can help. When your mother climbs out the window, I'll climb in and take her place. I can wrap myself up in her blanket, and when the constable looks in, he won't be able to tell the difference. Not in the dark. I can hump up and look a lot bigger. Miles can even put the window back. That would give you time to get away. You'd have at least till morning." Jessie squinted at her, and then he said, "Yep. You know, it might work. It might just make the difference. But I don't know as Pa's going to want you taking any risk. I mean, what'll they say to you after, when they find out?" "I don't know," said Winnie, "but it doesn't matter. Tell your father I want to help. I have to help. If it wasn't for me, there wouldn't have been any trouble in the first place. Tell him I have to." "Well, all right. Can you get out after dark?" "Yes," said Winnie. "Then at midnight, Winnie, I'll be waiting for you right here at midnight." "Winifred!" an anxious voice called from the cottage. "Who's that you're talking to?" Winnie stood up and turned to answer. "It's just a boy, Granny. I'll be in a minute." When she turned around again, Jessie was gone. Winnie clutched the little bottle in her hands and tried to control the rising excitement that made her breath catch. At midnight, she would make a difference in the world. It was the longest day, mindlessly hot, unspeakably hot, too hot to move or even think. The countryside, the village of Treegap, the wood, all lay defeated. Nothing stirred. The sun was a ponderous circle without edges, a roar without a sound, a blazing glare so thorough and remorseless that even in the Fosters' parlor with curtains drawn, it seemed an actual presence. You could not shut it out. Winnie's mother and grandmother sat plaintive all afternoon in the parlor, fanning themselves and sipping lemonade, their hair unsettled and their knees loose. It was totally unlike them, this lapse from gentility, and it made them much more interesting. But Winnie didn't stay with them. Instead, she took her own brimming glass to her room and sat in her little rocker by the window. Once she had hidden Jessie's bottle in a bureau drawer, there was nothing to do but wait. In the hall outside her room, the grandfather's clock ticked deliberately, unimpressed with anyone's impatience, and Winnie found herself rocking to its rhythm. Forward, back, forward, back, tick-tock, tick-tock. She tried to read, but it was so quiet that she could not concentrate, and so she was glad when at last it was time for supper. It was something to do, though none of them could manage more than a nibble. But later, when Winnie went out again to the fence, she saw that the sky was changing. It was not so much clouding up as thickening, somehow, from every direction at once, the blank blue gone to haze. And then as the sun sank reluctantly behind the treetops, the haze hardened to a brilliant brownish yellow. In the wood, the leaves turned underside up, giving the trees a silvery cast. The air was noticeably heavier. It pressed on Winnie's chest and made her breathing difficult. She turned and went back into the cottage. "It's going to rain, I think," she told the prostrate group in the parlor, and the news was received with little moans of gratitude. Everyone went to bed early, closing windows firmly on their way. For outside, though it was almost dark, shreds of the hard brown-yellow light lingered on the rims of things, and there was a wind beginning. Small gusts that rattled the fence gate and set the trees to rustling. The smell of rain hung sweet in the air. "What a week this has been," said Winnie's grandmother. "Well, thank the Lord it's almost over." And Winnie thought to herself, yes, it's almost over. There were 3 hours to wait before midnight, nothing whatever to do. Winnie wandered restlessly about her room, sat in her rocker, lay in her bed, counted the ticks of the hall clock. Beneath her excitement, she was thick with guilt. For the second time in 3 short days, though they seemed many more than that, she was about to do something which she knew would be forbidden. She didn't have to ask. Winnie had her own strong sense of rightness. She knew that she could always say afterward, "Well, you never told me not to," but how silly she would be. Of course it would never occur to them to include such a thing on their list of don'ts. She could hear them saying it and almost smiled. "Now, Winifred, remember, don't bite your fingernails, don't interrupt when someone else is speaking, and don't go down to the jailhouse at midnight to change places with prisoners." Still, it wasn't really funny. What would happen in the morning when the constable found her in his cell and had to bring her home for the second time? What would they say? Would they ever trust her again? Winnie squirmed, sitting in the rocker, and swallowed uncomfortably. Well, she would have to make them understand somehow, without explaining. The hall clock chimed 11. Outside, the wind had stopped. Everything, it seemed, was waiting. Winnie lay down and closed her eyes. Thinking of Tuck and May, of Miles and Jessie, her heart softened. They needed her to take care of them. For in the funny sort of way that had struck her at the first, they were helpless, or too trusting. Well, something like that. Anyway, they needed her. She would not disappoint them. May would go free. No one would have to find out. Winnie would not have to find out that May could not. But Winnie blocked the picture from her mind, the horror that would prove the secret. Instead, she turned her thoughts to Jessie. When she was 17, would she? If it was true, would she? And if she did, would she be sorry afterwards? Tuck had said it's something you don't find out how you feel until afterwards. But no, it wasn't true. She knew that now, here in her own bedroom. They were probably crazy after all, but she loved them anyway. They needed her. And thinking this, Winnie fell asleep. She woke with a jerk some time later and sat up, alarmed. The clock was ticking steadily. The darkness was complete. Outside, the night seemed poised on tiptoe, waiting, holding its breath for the storm. Winnie stole out to the hall and frowned at the clock face in the shadows, and at last she could make it out, for the black Roman numerals were just barely visible against their white ground, the brass hands glowing faintly. As she peered at them, the long hand snapped forward one more notch, with a loud click. She had not missed her moment. It was 5 minutes to midnight.